Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. We are here on another illustrious occasion. This is the Cult of Dangerous Gentlemen, the greatest, absolute greatest think tank ever assembled. No debate. And we're here to talk about the absurdity of the simulation, as we usually do. There's always something crazy going on in this three-dimensional projection that we happen to occupy. And this week is no different. But before we get started, we got a couple of things we want to get out of the way here this week. The last few times we've been broadcasting, I appreciate everybody who's been in the comments. They ask us questions. They try to figure out who's eating chicken, who's taking bong rips. They don't know who's doing what and who represents who. So I just wanted to make sure we take a quick moment here to formally introduce ourselves through our avatars that we present to everybody here. There are three core members of the Cult of Dangerous Gentlemen here, represented by the avatars you see on the side of your screen there. And the top totem, I'll let the brother speak for himself, but the top totem is our resident cave lawyer. So you make of that what you will, but I'll let him break it down a little bit more for you.
Yes, my name is Yakub Cavemanstein. I am a Ashkenazi Caucasoid lawyer that works for two beautiful black men who keep me on a leash and keep me in a gimp mask. So we call the leash retainer. So when they say my Jew lawyer is on a retainer, it means basically I'm a slave. I do whatever I'm told to help make this show a possibility. So I stand in service of the cult. Yakub Cavemanstein, the resident Ashkenazi lawyer, aka Gingerbread.
Oh, excellent. Now me, I am who is affectionately referred to as the shaman, and I'm the one who does all the necromancy, all the alchemy for the simulation here. And as you probably already know, I'm what some people consider a bleep. I personally identify as a scholar, but they're interchangeable these days. So if you say bleep or if you say scholar, I think I know pretty much what you're talking about. And I kind of just I handle a lot of the spiritual matters here, especially the beyond the pale spiritual matters. I handle a lot of the plans and the groundwork for our dome house cult that we're building. And that's just my job here, is to remain in a neutral space, not get too worked up about things, and only care when we need to mine something for podcast material or something like that. Other than that, I'm completely detached from almost the entirety of human goings on. So I'm like I'm sort of like a Dr. Manhattan type vibe. If I could just teleport to Mars and psychically build structures and explore with other life forms, I'd probably do that, because the quarrels that happen here in three-dimensional human life, I just had to unplug from it, and I've been better ever since. So I have no regrets. And our third totem, last but not least, is Doobie, the owner and operator of rebranding blackness. Doobie, you want to let the people know what's up, man? Let them know what you got going on. Is he here?
He's late. It's so the owner of blackness is late.
The owner of blackness is late again.
Sometimes I apologize.
There he is.
I apologize. I work at the plantation. I escape every Sunday out in the woods to have this meeting. I apologize. Master was having his ways with the negresses. But I be Doobie, aka You Can't Outsmoke Me. I love you all. I'm just here to enjoy the good conversations with you guys.
Yeah, and also rebranding blackness, because it's so desperately needed today.
Yes, I gotta save blackness from blackness itself. As you see, I was late, so I have to save myself from myself a lot.
Which is the natural plight of the brown man on the planet, is saving yourself from yourself. I mean, this is just what we're doing. But now that we got all of that out of the way, anybody have any other questions? Of course, you can always leave it in the chat. We're always checking back and forth. We may not be completely locked in enough to see what's going on. See, exactly. We already got a bunch of people in here. I just tapped in. We got Dan Houston in here. Kobe Clown is in here. They're all chilling. Yeah, Doobie was late. That's typical. But you know what? At this point, I think we just have to extend him some concessions. I mean, he is black. He is a bleep, for one. Two, he does have a lot of work to do under the watchful eye of the watchful blue eye is always over Doobie's shoulder.
Yes,
Until we
always.
can get, until we're able to garner some what we call fuck you money, you just got to be under the blue eye, under the watchful blue eye. So when being under the watchful blue eye brings you a lot of stress, it can destroy some of your well-being. I mean, just the observation is a microaggression. So sometimes it takes a little bit, more downtime for you to recollect your thoughts and get yourself together. And the system that we exist in now, it just has a way of sapping all your energy out from you, so you got nothing left from yourself. So after you put in your 8 hours in your cubicle or whatever, your plantation, basically, even though they pay you, they give you a 401k and benefits, it's still a slavery.
Plantation.
It's a plantation. The same thing. So once you get done with that, it takes a long time. You got to smoke a little bud. You got to kick your feet up. You got to, you know what I'm saying? You might have to engage in some illicit behaviors just to get yourself back to neutral, to where you can hop on the podcast. And so honestly, whenever Doobie's late, I just blame white people. That's kind of, I think it works. If anybody has an objection, I'm open to hear your objection. But whenever Doobie's late, I just blame whiteness as a concept. Not any one particular white person, because that would be rude, that would be bigoted. But to blame whiteness as a concept, I think it is acceptable. I think everybody's on board with that. But I appreciate everybody for tuning in, keeping the chat popping already. But before we get deep into the show, before we start talking about Sandpocalypse and Jacob versus Ishmael, we're going to have a quick word from our sponsor. So this week's sponsor, hold on, wait, let me cue it up properly. This is a special one, so y'all just sit back and take a listen.
Today's program is brought to you by Racial Mania, the only annual sporting event founded on Dr. Cuthbert's principles of racial reparative therapy. Each year, the richest, most powerful white men and women are put to the popular vote without mail-in ballots to decide who will compete in the only public execution competitive sporting league in human history. Most of these men are legitimately corrupt and or guilty of turning a profit from human misery. If they aren't guilty, well, they probably did something, but it is put to the popular vote. The most important thing is they are rich and they're white. And for the next 3 months, they're training for the fight of their lives. Cities full of wayward youths of color compete to have the lowest murder rates and violent crime statistics in the country. Based on performance, each city is awarded additional participants for the year's festivities. Every city is represented by a team of youths competing to see who can engineer the most deadly and most entertaining gladiator scenario. Events are evaluated on body count, style, and originality. They come complete with claymores, Rube Goldberg machines that trigger crossbows, rotating spikes, and pits of pit bulls wearing Michael Vick jerseys who've been fasting all through Ramadan.
Sunday.
Now's when the fun begins. Our ragtag group of white-collar criminals tries to see who can survive the longest. Yes, you can keep insider trading. Yes, you can keep poisoning the water. Heck, you can even keep using charities to launder money and traffic children. But you're gonna have to fight through armed bands of inner-city youth in order to do so. Will you survive hand-to-hand combat with your fellow aristocrats? Will you form an alliance and try to survive the gauntlet together? Think fast, because only one of you is gonna make it out alive. Racial Mania! Government-mandated viewing in order to vote. This November!
I, for one, am...
That shit sounded exciting.
It does.
To be honest with
That's what I'm about to say. I, for one, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to the first annual Racial Mania event. I mean, I'd rather see this than monster trucks or wrestling or anything else like that.
On a Sunday?
On a Sunday.
Yeah.
Sunday. Racial Mania. Yeah, it's going down. So hopefully we'll see everybody here in attendance, especially if you intend to vote. As you heard in the commercial there, the only way to get yourself registered to vote is to be a viewer of Racial Mania. So you have to know this is the world affairs that you really need to know about, what's really going on. All that other shit don't really matter. We can remove some of those questions and everything else, but Racial Mania, that's the thing that allows you to vote from now on. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm very, very happy that this is a thing. And this is why we're the greatest think tank ever assembled. Nobody can compete with the ideas and the content that we come up with here. This is going to be a multi-million dollar pay-per-view event. And I think it's going to help everybody get to a better place as far as race relations here. We get to see a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I think it's beautiful. I definitely appreciate this.
I'd watch it even if the government wasn't forcing us. And if you've got a better idea on how to get the cities to behave and to weed out corruption, I'm all ears. But
Yeah,
I haven't heard a better game in town.
No.
Racial Mania is the way. It's the only way to have real racial reparative therapy in this country.
Might bring Detroit back to #1.
It could. Well, there's a few ways we've come up with. I think a holistic approach to repairing, race relations in this country. It's going to be Racial Mania. I think the police draft might have something to do. That might help. I think we've come up with a few. Actually, the white labor force, I think is one of the most powerful, because I think something that black people need in this country, Shovelhead, what up? What black people need in this country is the opportunity that they've never been afforded, really, if you think about it historically, not for a long time anyway. But white people got to sit back on their porches of the plantations and drink antebellum lemonade. They got to just sip on it and watch the Negroes work in the field. And black folks have never experienced that. So I think once we get white labor force, and that might be one of our upcoming sponsors, by the way, but once we get white labor force on the job, see, not only do we hire full teams of white people out to do work for black people, they're going to work for pennies on the dollar. So not only do the black people get to see the white people working in their yard or on their house, they also get the comfort of knowing how cheap the labor is. It won't be free because we don't want to be inhumane, but we do need to see black people on their porches sipping. What would be the black equivalent of antebellum lemonade?
Sugar water.
So just
grape soda.
Yeah, grape soda.
Grape soda. Post-emancipation grape soda.
Actually, I kind of take offense to the idea that black people know what grapes are, and I'm gonna say purple soda, because
Fair.
Yeah, using a fruit title for black people's drinks doesn't.
It implies nutrition.
That's why they're not gonna drink it. You're implying nutrition. The idea of nutrition and diet and eating right, and that's all white supremacy. All of that. That's all white supremacy. That's all logical.
All you gotta do is give Negro sugar water, and they love it.
Sugar water, red number 40, blue number 5.
Come on, man. We made chitlings look good, and that's that shit
Maybe-
on a stick.
Maybe the grape soda should be drank out of a pig's foot.
Yeah, a hollowed out,
For further
A hollowed
authenticity.
out pig's foot.
a
Yeah.
hollowed
pig's
out
hoof.
dehydrated
Yes.
pig's hoof.
Pig's hoof. A pig's hoof worth of grape soda.
You get a hoof of
Yes.
soda. There's a hoof of purple soda.
Why haven't we done this before?
No, look, and so look, you could get. They'll do your whole roof for $35.
Yeah, that's
because
the
it's
thing,
gonna
whole
be
roof.
it's gonna be guilty white liberals who are just like, look, I want to feel like I've done something to assuage my sins, so I'm gonna volunteer it. It'll be the new chic thing, like, oh, I went to an AIDS benefit, I went to the Met Gala. What did you do? Oh, I did 3 months in the Peace Corps. I did 12 months at Doctors Without Borders. Yeah, I was the regional director for 6 years at White Labor Force. And you're automatically the toast of the town. You're the life of the party. You're the most interesting person in the room at that point. And you talk about how you rebuilt an entire transmission for $14 with you and 5 of your guiltiest white friends. And black people go onto this app and they just sit down and they drink purple drink from a hollowed out pig's hoof and watch white people work for them. And it begins to make the hatred and the bitterness of slavery melt away.
Right.
It melts away. You're melting the icy hearts of hate because you're willing, like getting on and posting a black square in your profile, it only does but so much. Making sure you say all the right things, like, yeah, you know, you're saying what you need to say in order to be accepted by polite society. But what is that doing to really repair? Where's the racial reparative therapy in that? It's only found in white labor force. It's the only way guilty white people can actually move the needle on racial hate. And I would go so far as to say, if you are fancying yourself an ally and you've never served in white labor force and dedicated your time and energy free of charge to the black community, I'd say that you're a racial activist with stolen valor. That's the stolen valor equivalent of racial activism.
I
If you've
agree.
never served,
I agree.
Okay.
No, you can't tell me about feeding the homeless. You can't tell me about adopting children from brown countries, because we know how that turns out. If you haven't replaced a black man's carburetor for $20, then I don't know what to tell you. If you haven't done his roof for $50, his entire roof with no cutting corners, you don't get to go to Habitat for Humanity and buy cheap shingles. No, you go right to Lowe's, Home Depot.
Buying weed from Antoine doesn't count, Billy.
Yeah, but that doesn't count, because it's back to serving yourself. You have to be able to serve the bleeps, help repair the situation. And cheap labor is extremely endearing under most circumstances. It really endears you to the person who's doing the work for so cheap.
If you haven't done the landscaping for an entire project for a ham sandwich, you hate black people.
Clearly.
You should just be quiet. Clearly. White labor force is the way. It's going to start being the way for your college entrance. They're going to look at it. Okay, so you got a 1540 on your SATs. That's cool. How many hours did you serve
overall
white labor force?
Overall jeans and boots. That's the outfit.
Yeah. You wear all white overalls, and you don't. We got it. You can't leave here clean either. We got to know you putting some elbow grease in.
That's how they check. If you come back with clean overalls, you didn't really put in the work. There's no sweat. In fact, it's going to be a new trend where you're going to go into a rich white person's house and they're going to have like their filthy white overalls like in a display case hanging up on the wall. Like, yeah, you see how filthy that is? Oh yeah, 14 months white labor force in Detroit.
Because if you're too clean, all you're really doing is protecting whiteness.
Right, because some people are going to try. Right, because you want to go there and take a white role and not do the work. Like, yeah, I'll go over there and be a foreman. You know, I'll make sure that they do a good job of repaving the entire street. I'll make sure they do a good job. And you just sit there and you look like, nope, it's all sweat equity. If there's no sweat equity, you didn't do it right. White labor force, racial reparative therapy. And as far as racial mania, look, if it gets Baltimore to behave, we can't hand over a couple white people every year. A couple of shitty white people. Like shitty white people. And it's determined, like, how is that not outreach? If it's determined by popular vote without mail-in ballots, you can get the right people in there. You can get the right people in there to fight for their lives. Like these aren't innocent people. These aren't innocent people. If you eliminated the murder rate in Oakland, it's gone. The bleeps are behaving. It's not worth handing Mark Zuckerberg over.
Right.
Yeah. For the election interference and buying all of those. Yeah. It's not worth it. It's not worth it to hand Mitch McConnell over. Like, come on, Mitch. Now you've been voted out. People know the insider trading is gross. Get in there. You're already old, but hopefully, with your mind clicking out, maybe that'll get you more in touch with your body and you'll kind of just go in beast mode because your conscious mind is gone. Maybe he's got more of a chance to just be in the zone. But I think if that's the price, handing over white collar criminals to compete in an entertaining way, so that the bleeps behave and we get to sacrifice, like, think about how many innocent people without color are being killed every year by interracial violence. There's already way more numbers.
In fact,
if you could eliminate that by handing over 12 shitty, rich cunts, you wouldn't do it. You wouldn't do it. And think about the themes. Like New York could have like a theme, like they'll make their gladiator scenario look like Central Park. They'll say it's based upon like a love story of like a jogger and 5 dudes. You know what I mean? And they'll play a game where they hide in the bushes and you gotta get through the gauntlet before they grab you and penetrate you. Like, it would be great TV. Think of all the themed events that you could have to put torturous events on some of the shittiest people. And I think it's a sign of goodwill. Because what's the number one complaint? What is the number one complaint from white people on Twitter? Oh, black people won't ever call out their criminals. No matter what the video is, you'll defend them. You know what? And gentlemen, there may be some truth to that. If we're being fair, you can find plenty of examples of that. So be the bigger person and say, look, if you're going to change your heart and be in for the sake of racial reparative therapy and be willing to start handing over your criminals to the police, we'll start handing our piece of shit criminals over to you. Only 3 murders in Detroit for all of 2024. You get 50 of your best soldiers to fuck up this group of CEOs. These CEOs and politicians, have at it. Find the most creative ways to torture and abuse them. It's all you. We could fix racism in a matter of 12 months. I think after one racial mania, the change would be irreversible. America would be on a new trajectory for peace and racial harmony for just a couple of rich white fucks a year. I think we all could live with that.
Definitely. And it makes things more interesting. I remember I watched a documentary once about the show Cops. And they tried to catch this guy, make him put his foot in his mouth about some racial stuff. But he was so ready. He was so poised. The guy was so quick on his feet. It was the person who created the show. And they asked him, how come you always have these poor black criminals on Cops? Why don't you have white collar criminals? Why don't you chase those guys? And he said, because it's boring. It's not interesting. He said the criminals, yeah, they're doing crimes, but if you could get that white collar criminal to take his shirt off and throw his cell phone at the cops when they come through the door, then you might have a TV show on your hands. It just the thought in my
resisting
head.
Arrest would skyrocket. If it's like, yo, you saw the election results last night, Todd. You saw that you're going to this year's racial mania. They would absolutely try to flee.
Gosh, it is amazing. The fact that he said if you can get him to take his shirt off and throw his cell phone at the cops, and instantly in my head was like, yeah, I'd watch that episode. They was chasing Bernie Madoff, and when they got there, he ain't had no shirt on. He had his tie wrapped around his head like a bandana, and he threw his cell phone at the cops and tried to jump out the window. That's an amazing episode of Cops.
And I reject the notion that this is communism.
Yeah,
he sound like communism.
We are not.
No.
We are not. Listen, I got the perfect quote for that. This is what we're about. This is what we're about.
Oh.
Hold on.
Asians, blacks, whites, Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, Cubans, dogs, horses, fish, roaches, worms, butterflies, ants. Nigga, I don't like nothing.
We hate them all. We hate them all.
I don't even know. Okay, so the term commie for me is a little loose. It's a little nebulous. I think it's just kind of like one of those things that you can say about somebody at some point to cast doubt on the validity of their ideas. Like I don't know if communist or commie is really like a thing anymore. Like
it still is.
Communism is a thing, but here's the thing. With all of the isms get exploited. So technically we have capitalism, but we have really sweetheart deals for some sectors of the economy that kind of make it a form. You know, crony capitalism mirrors communism in a lot of ways. Like any ism can be exploited. Like we need to just stop thinking in terms of isms and start thinking in terms of results. So I can say, because you're right, it is a little authoritarian to start rounding up people based on the popular vote. But there is going to be some criteria for who you can nominate. So it's not just anybody, but it's geared to keep the people who have abused their power in capitalism, in the free market, in a supposedly free and fair republic, democratic republic or whatever. There is no check on those people. The current system that we have is technically capitalism, is ran by the intelligent agencies, is ran by NGOs. There's all kinds of foreign interests. There's money we're dumping all over the world that gets laundered. There's already a system in place that's being exploitive because it's using this ability for the government to overreach to get done what it wants. So we need some sort of check on that corrupting influence on the system. And so we're going to use that same authoritative apparatus that currently gets used against us, the common people, and we're going to laser focus it on the people at the very top. Now, look, it's the same thing. They spy on all of us. Patriot Act, NSA is always watching. All the telecommunication companies, they're storing all the metadata now and forever till the end of time.
We give
and
them
what did it? But hold on though. What do they tell you? If you're not doing nothing, don't worry about it. Look, you ain't making money by exploiting the fuck out of the planet and people. If you're not farming out human suffering to get your product to market, if you're not manipulating the laws and being corrupt so that you sell out the country while you enrich your family, if you're not doing none of that shit, cool. Who the fuck is going to vote for you? Who's going to vote for you? No one's going to want to destroy you because eventually racial mania is going to phase out. It's probably, we've estimated that it might be at least 50 years. We may need 50 years of these collective therapy sessions before we all come to our senses and can be reasonable about race and culture and all live together in harmony without the bitterness and the distractions. But as it stands, we've got two problems. We've got complete racial disharmony with no unifying national character or culture that's binding us all together. And on top of that, we have a problem with corruption at the top, ruining everything for everybody with no signs of it stopping. This is one way that you use that apparatus to solve that problem. So any of the isms can be exploited. Capitalism, communism is just a philosophy that guides the decision makers. But history has told us no matter what kind of system or ism that you put in place, clever people are going to exploit it. So
Once
this is
man's
just
dick touches it, it gets AIDS.
it's fucked. It's fucked up. It's got corruption aids.
Yep.
Everything has corruption aids. So if we're gonna have corruption aids and we're gonna have exploitation, maybe have it instead of using it to lie us into wars and to enrich the greediest, most psychopathic sociopaths. Instead of using it for that, let's use it for some racial healing. Let's use it for some incredible entertainment. Let's use it to put a little thing in the system that makes rich, powerful people think twice before they do the fuckery and think that they're untouchable. So I get your fear about it being kind of commie-esque, but I think at this point we just need to throw away titles and we just need to start talking about what works. Because the current thing ain't working. So I wouldn't say this is so much communism as it is national religion. We need a national religion to bring us back together. We all have these disparate cultures. There's enclaves of different groups, but we're really not a nation with a national character and anything that binds us. This could be the collective ritual that brings us all to the table, whereby we exercise our demon, we satisfy our urge for violence and competitiveness. You got, football. Hey, this city's got this team, this sports team, and it's the same. It feeds the same kind of need, But right now, look at all your sports. It's not solving the controversy. It's making the controversy bigger. The NBA, the NFL, they don't know whether to support Black Lives Matter or not. They don't know which customers to cater to or not. Right, so sports as it is
they had
isn't bringing us together.
Dashiki thingy, and then they're all wearing the Ukrainian flag, and now
Right,
they
the
got
kente cloth.
Yeah, now there's gonna be the belt buckle of Israel flag coming out next. I'm telling you, like it's these guys don't know where to go.
Look, let them keep pillaging and grape aping the entire planet, but they don't get to do it from behind their gated communities far from the law and public reach and public opinion. You keep fucking around, you're going to find out that the people are going to demand that if you want to keep your insider trading and planet fucking going, you got 50 bleeps from Baltimore that are ready to get down. Now, what are you and the 11 other frail white business class people going to do to survive? because you got to survive the gladiator pit for every major city filled with bleeps that we've incentivized to behave with the promise of racial mania. If you'll stop giving the police nonstop, unsolvable amounts of crime to do, if you won't make this place a shithole that has nothing but violence and little kids getting hit by strays, and nobody wants to open a business here because there's no stability, and that's why the cycle of poverty and violence continues. You want to attract some investment? Let's get some peace. We've tried to let you do it through record deals. You motherfuckers have killed the most successful people that you put out in music. The heroes have been killed. You've killed your own Malcolm X. How can we get you to stop killing each other? Well, we promise we hand you over a couple of white people, a couple of evil white people. Just behave. Stop the fuckery in the inner city. We'll give you a reward in the form of racial mania points, and now you get to be stars. Nobody would have known who Daquan Williams was from Philly. No one would ever know him. But the performance he put on when he decapitated 2 CEOs at once with a single swing, when he put 14 rounds in the chest cavity of a female combatant, all of a sudden he's a legend. Because you know what? He did it while high stepping. He did it with style. He did it with finesse. He did it in a way that would have made, who was your boy that got fired? Who used to own the Clippers? Whatever that dude, you remember the race he lost the Clippers because I guess he said racial things to his racially ambiguous girlfriend. So he had to sell Donald Sterling, was it?
Yep. Donald
Okay.
Sterling.
They would pull off moves that would make Donald Sterling blush and say, look how graceful their black bodies are. It's amazing the things that they can do. And now all of a sudden, Daquan Williams isn't a statistic. He's a hero that brought the gold home for Racial Mania 2025 back home to Philly. And all of a sudden you go to Philly and you look for those meth videos and you can't find them anymore because nobody's drug dealing. Nobody's willing to take on the prospect of violence and fucking up the numbers and fucking up our shot at Racial Mania this year. So all of a sudden there's an incentive to quell the violence and clean up the community. Look, if you've got a better idea, we're open to it. But it looks like we've tried everything. We've tried Law and Order. That kind of worked better than what we got now, but it didn't solve it. And black people still as a whole hated white people. We tried drugs. They just made a business out of it. And then we tried
very innovative.
And then we tried, we'll do no cash bail. We'll just let everybody get away. And shit is bananas right now. So that didn't work either. So none of the approaches from either party have proven to fix the problem. And again, because the problem is not a problem that the government can solve. The problem is a problem that only culture can solve. And you can't have culture without a cult. And you can't have a cult without religious rituals. Racial mania is our way to racial reparative therapy and universal healing. I'm convinced there's no other route. It may sound ugly. It may sound extremist. It may sound communistic in its approach. But I assure you, it's the only real path that we have. And if we refuse to take it, we'll see that we'll continue to be dealing with all of these same problems. You could put this in a time capsule and check in on whatever this is 200 years later, and we'll be dealing with the same shit. So racial mania or bust, there's no other way. I'm convinced.
I'm with you. I'm 100% with you on that. I'm looking forward to it. I'm ready to see it happen. I think we're talking. We had a lot of comments rolling in, a lot of people talking. But I see somebody mentioning about how all the sports and they're going to be taken because they're all bleeps anyway. So they're all
let them have it.
Yeah,
let them have it. And the head of a couple
equipped.
Of white people.
Yeah, they're already so equipped for this game, and most of that is. I mean, again, I have to circle back around to whiteness, white supremacy. These Negroes are taking over sports because they had 200 years of selective breeding. I mean, if you got 200 years of selective breeding,
gave them the best of the best.
I mean, it was the LeBron James factory.
Come on.
What did you expect? What did you think? Eventually, that was going to happen. But luckily, they got something to do because it would be like having trained soldiers hanging around with nothing to do. Eventually, they're just going to start acting out everything they've learned on civilians. They're just gonna start beating everybody's ass and chopping heads off. But you got football, basketball, you got like all these things that they're hopping into and taking over. This is how you kind
And
of
fast
quell that
twitch
energy.
muscles also, right? They have big thighs, fast twitch muscles, right?
Yeah, well, it's selective breeding. Yeah. That's
Okay.
that's where most of it came from. Like, how many LeBron Jameses has Africa produced? Would they do like Mutombo and Yui Bowl?
Yeah, Manute Bol and Mutombo, that's it.
Oh, I said Yui Bowl. I think that's a director. Who is
I
that?
think there's more Eastern Europeans that get over than
Yeah, than
Africans.
Africans. Yeah, you're right.
Right. So the American Negro is something special. The FBA, right?
Well, we lost to
Some
Canada.
special.
It's something special. And
Well,
and what was that special ingredient? The watchful blue eye.
Yes.
Of selective breeding.
Yeah.
So it sounds bad, but you can't argue with results.
Right. Right. So listen, he said, why don't the good bleeps hunt the bad bleeps?
Well, we solved that. That's reparations.
Yeah,
Well,
we also, that's
we are-
another world-changing idea.
We
I'm
solved that
you know
already.
what, my friend? I'm glad you asked.
Since you asked,
So we have something called the reparations death clock. And so there's a set amount of money to be released at a certain time every 5 to 10 years. And it's a disbursement because we're doing it like an annuity, because if you pay it all at once, the country collapses. But it's paid out based upon how many black people there are that are surviving that are FBAs. And I think there will now be an incentive when Jacob Blake goes and digitally penetrates somebody and the cops go after him. I think everybody will be in there and be like, why didn't y'all keep shooting? Why did you only paralyze him? There will be a desire to make the number bigger per person by getting the dead weight out of here. So there'll be a way and an incentive for the good bleeps to snitch on the bad bleeps and get them out of there. Because when the death clock goes, and they're watching it just like the debt clock, you see how the debt clock goes? They'll be looking at the reparations payout death clock. And the more kids you have and the more people you bringing in, the less money is coming to the table. But the more people we're putting in prison or taking them off of here so that they don't qualify for the racial death clock payout, now your check's going to get that much bigger.
right.
So it sounds fucked up. It
Easy
sounds
fix,
mean-spirited, but what would you rather have? Would you rather have a situation where people are being violent and the community feels that it's a betrayal to snitch even on the worst behaved people there? Or is it better that when those people behave terribly and no one's taking accountability for it, that there's now an incentive for the people that are being victimized to thin the herd and get that reparations death clock number up?
I
It would
like
be the purge 24/7.
I like it. I fucking love it. It's a consistent purge. It keeps all the problems kind of sequestered into a very specific area, and it basically deputizes regular people to deal with the scourge of their communities, and you monetize the entire process. I
And
personally
what
don't
else
see a
if-
problem?
And what else is it partnered with to further drive home the point of community police cooperation in those war zone areas? You got the police draft.
Right.
There is no more white police officers. You get that draft letter like, I'm going to Vietnam. I got to go fight in Vietnam. No, you're in Brooklyn. You're going right down the street because you're guarding Myrtle Ave to whatever the fuck, right? You're there on the block. You're responsible. And the criminals are now coming after you. Now it's up to you how safe the community is and how you want to deal with the most violently aggressive people that are a danger and a scourge in the community. Like, you're responsible for it now. You can't blame it on anybody else. You're getting drafted. You're getting drafted. Now you're standing on the wall. So at every level, it creates ownership. It puts the onus on the people to fix it themselves, and it financially incentivizes them to do the right thing. Now they got skin in the game. Now there's a payout on the end. They don't know if this, look, America's talking, oh, we got racial reparations review boards. Man, that's all lip service. See if they ever actually cut a check. But if you actually get your ducks in the row, to actually be able to pay out something based on a payout structure that you can have bean counters line up and figure out, well, like this much is in the budget and this much has been redirected. You could figure out the payout. It'd be like the lottery. And like, look, in 2025, this is what the payout's going to be. This is where we're currently at per person. This is where we're at per person. And if you get a felony in the meantime, you're out. If you're locked up and you're in prison, when the payout comes, you don't qualify for it. If you're dead, you don't qualify for it.
Oh well.
Is it bad?
No.
Is it bad that we've thought through all of this
No.
and that we're that excited for somebody to ask us, well, what about this? We've literally sat here through these sessions and figured it all out. And I'd hate to sound arrogant, but we figured it all out. But we know the country doesn't have the stomach to do what needs to be done. So at least we can die with a clear conscience to say, look, we gave you the blueprint. You watched it all get flushed down the drain and fucking go up in a fiery pillar of smoke. But it's not our fault. We led you to the water. We can't make you drink it.
Listen, it's all there. Like you said, like Doobie said, greatest think tank ever invented, ever assembled. It's all there. All the solves are there. If the world was really about solutions, they would just, give us a 50 or 60 billion.
We'll have the Magic Johnson AIDS cure, but
yeah,
we
they
don't.
just sit around and think about how to fix this shit. That's exactly what they would do. Shovelhead said, he said we need blood reparations for Ruby Ridge and Waco. That would make me a little bit less radical. There's a lot packed into there. Ruby Ridge was definitely fucked up. But if the cops come to your property to serve a warrant, you probably shouldn't just start firing at them or anything like that. Like, there's some extreme situations, but it's not a battle you're going to win, especially when you got women and children around. And Waco, as much as I respect,
Ruby Ridge was the guy who lived up in the mountains, right?
Yeah, and the cops,
that was a real fuck up on the police side.
Yeah, big time.
Oh, both instances, yeah, for sure,
big time. But he was definitely a little bit more standoffish than you probably need to be, because
But they shot him first. They shot his kid first.
Yeah, they shot. Well, they was all strapped. They shot his son, and then they saw they were like a couple days later, I think it was, they saw movement and shit in the house. They thought somebody was going for another weapon, and they ended up shooting his wife. And then once they shoot your wife, it's just like, oh, we might as well.
That's what I'm saying. It's fuck the government, bro.
Well, to be
in trouble.
Look, all of the intelligent agencies need to be brought to justice, and the law enforcement agencies that were deployed unnecessarily, where people got killed, and look, there's definitely some onus, but there's definitely some justice due. But what I would say is, the Clive and Bundy ranch incident or whatever, that was kind of a little bit of a get back. That was a punch in the eye.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that they were inspired by that event. And these are all things, and it's a fucked up thing to kind of contemplate, because I mean, that's where the whole Timothy McVeigh thing came through, whether you think that was a hoax or not. But the official record is that was in response to some of those events. And that just ended in what? More senseless death. Yeah. So I don't think senseless violence or random violence in response to like really fucked up behavior. And look, violence, killing innocent people, for sure, the government is guilty of that. But when people try to say, well, I'm going to stand up against it and I'm going to get some get back, almost invariably it results in random innocent people getting killed. Like, I think the better move,
more power against you too.
Right, because then they're more justified. Then it's like, well, look, you saw what they did. Timothy McVeigh blew up the federal building. We got to monitor these people. We got to go after them and preemptively, arrest them or show up with guns. And yeah, you're right. It gives them an excuse to be more, violent and authoritarian. But again, an alternative, look, everybody gets their vote in racial mania. Maybe you find out who the FBI director that ordered that Ruby Ridge, whatever, right? You find out. It's public information. We have actual journalists who are putting real, and you start your campaign Like, yo, if the dude is dick fucking stuff. Yo, dick fucking stuff is responsible for 6 dead kids at this rated cult compound or whatever. Cool. Put his name out there. Run your campaign and make him compete. Make him compete against the Oakland assholes. Make him compete against the Chicago disciples, the New York bleeps, whatever they're naming their teams. Make him compete. I think that's the best sentence that you could mete out. You're targeting the right person, and if you made the wrong call, look, he has a chance. He might be the winner. Dick fucking stuff might have done something wrong, but he had his time. He went and he served, and he gave a great performance at Racial Mania 2028.
I love it. I think the world is waiting for it. I think the world needs it. I think it's just a perfect time for it. I think it's acceptable right now. Everybody would love it. I don't think it would be. It doesn't look cool to protect your own criminals while trying to call for justice against criminals from other groups of people. So if you want crime to be brought to heel, you want justice, then you need to sacrifice your criminals and let them play the gladiator games. I think the world is ready. I personally think the world is ready. I think it's time to get it cracking. And yeah, Racial Mania, man, it's coming. It's coming. It's going to happen sooner than we think. And if anybody else, if any billionaire gets wind of this show and decides to put Racial Mania into progress, just make sure you just write us a check. That's all.
Absolutely. Give credit where the credit's due. Fund the think tank that gave you that $1 billion idea. And you're right. I can't see the name of the dude in the chat. Sounds like the Warriors. Absolutely. I'd love to see some baseball fury type. That's the whole point. It's the regalia, because it's not just the Racial Mania is a 1-week celebration where everything shuts down. Nobody goes to work. No business happens for 1 week. We're focused on Racial Mania, and there'll be pageantry. So when you see the Baltimore Bleeps take the field to tune up these white collar criminals, before that, you're gonna see their float in the Racial Mania parade. You're gonna have the lead up sports commentary, watching the old white men and women training for the upcoming event. It'll just be like just like they do with sports now, where they follow them and they craft a story. That's all going to be in the lead up, and they're going to find a theme for their gladiator event. They're going to be creative. They're learning engineering skills. Daquan was 16 and destined to be a criminal. Now he knows how to make a Rube Goldberg machine that shoots a crossbow. He's going to be an electromagnetic engineer someday. That was the first step, because he got his shot in Racial Mania.
This is special, man. This is absolutely special.
Absolutely special. And you're right. Fuck politics. It doesn't matter. It's all. Look, we know it's a joke. We know there's no political solution. We know fucked up people do fucked up things, and the law and government and religion, it's all a pretense for people to justify why they do their fucked up things. The only thing you could really do is do your best not to contribute to the fuckery by being a fucked up person. That's the extent of your responsibility. But focusing on it and obsessing about it to the point where it's making you miserable and depressed, I agree with you. It's a waste of time. Why be old and talk about politics incessantly? I agree 1.5%.
To be fair, I voted for yay. So.
As we all should.
So.
Yeah, well, like I said, we
this would have never happened if we went the yay way.
We talk this politics stuff once a week, because all it really does is show how viable our alternatives are. That's really what it does, because it's always a bottomless pit when you talk about politics. There are really no solutions. It's just people on both sides trying to be right, and people on both sides, for the most part, engaging in similar behaviors that they would complain about the other side doing, but when it's your side doing it, it's fine. Because hypocrisy is innately human. That's what it is. You don't have to teach hypocrisy. A baby will act as a hypocrite in certain circumstances. If the situation presents itself,
baby?
Absolutely, a baby. Yep, 100%. If you take two
Little
babies,
Schindler.
You give two babies, right? You got two little baby boys. You give one of them a wooden spoon. Somebody's getting hit in the head with a wooden spoon. And it's probably going to be hilarious to the person that didn't get hit in the head with a wooden spoon. And then you give the other kid a wooden spoon. Now we both got one. And see the look on the face of the child who hit the first shot. Like if you swung first and you bonked the kid on the head, that's going to be hilarious.
So you're giving away Mike Vick's secrets right now, but I hear you.
But then when you take that spoon and you get bonked on the head with it, now all of a sudden it's not funny anymore. That's what we call in our compendium, fuck you, hooray for me. This is what it is. It's the most natural thing a human can do. If you see somebody slip and fall on the ice, that was hilarious. And then you slip and fall on the ice, all of the people who laughed at you are idiots. They're dicks. They're jerks. Why would you laugh at a person who just slipped on the ice? This is just what the mind does. It's what the brain does, bro. So I ain't mad at them for it. I'm not upset with them for being hypocrites. I just see what's happening, and I know that there is.
It's tough to pick a side too.
You can't pick a side because they're the same side. It's the same
that's what
thing.
I'm saying. Like I hate the side picking because it's like I hear you, but you know what I'm saying. Like that's the part that I hate the most is the side picking, and then it's like you as a human. Some go the right of picking a side, but like me, I stay quiet. But like you always, if you just pay attention and you look at the people around you, like the side picking is just it's inevitable at some point.
Yeah, that's what happens, man. It's tribalism when it comes down to it. My side versus your side, and then it just gets so intense. And that's not. I'm not talking about in election cycles or when it comes to specific candidates or specific alignments, whether you Democrat or Republican. That's not what I'm talking about. The intensity comes over time. So if you're young and you're just now getting into politics and you're learning about what's happening in the world, you don't have an opportunity to enter that space objectively and just be like, okay, who's got better ideas? No, because it's already loaded with hundreds of years of conflict, and they did this, and Watergate, and who found tapes, and who slept with. It's just a bunch of bullshit. It's humans doing what humans do. In my opinion, I think they're all in on it. I believe that a government is an innately kind of, especially when it's just with regular humans. You don't need any particular type of enlightenment to be in the government. You don't have to prove that you're compassionate or that you're a decent person. Like all you got to do is you take the right classes, you know the right people, and you campaign. You wear the right color tie because red ties inspire trust from the public. Okay, so I'm a complete thief and scumbag, but if I wear this red tie, people don't trust beards, so you got to be clean shaven. Okay, I'll be a clean shaven grapist. I'm gonna grab women and drag them in the alleyways and grape them because they trust me because I look like Ted Bundy. I'm attractive with no beard. It's the men with the beards you got to worry about. We just create arbitrary, goofy, stupid shit, and then we broadcast those ideas out so all the people who want to fuck us over have the information on how to do it. Women say, oh, if a man messages you, if he texts you in the morning at 11:11 and asks you how that's special because in the cards. So what do you think the scumbags who want to bang you going to do? They're going to text you at 11:11 because you've already, that's what they're going to do. You've already told them, oh yeah, you buy her flowers and you give her
those Hotep niggas, they've been listening.
Yeah, exactly. I'll just buy the flowers and then I'll hit and I'll leave like I really want to. But when you create these arbitrary standards about how to judge people and what means what, and a lot of it is just psychology. We don't decide how we react to colors. But once you understand that information, if a candidate comes out with a blue shirt on with a red tie, you should be able to be like, did he pick that because it looks awesome to him? Or does he think his blue shirt is going to make me think of security and stability while the red tie means bold? And like, you need to look at these things and understand what's happening and don't just always take the bait. You got your boy Ron DeSantis right now is wearing lifts in his shoes because people like taller candidates better. He's wearing lifts in his boots, B.
What a fucking mook.
But you know who's the mook? The people who go, I trust tall guys. Those are the mooks.
Yeah, those are the mooks too.
Those are the mooks. Because the short guy can put lifts in his shoes and now you trust him. So you just played yourself. You played yourself because you trust tall guys better. But it is what it is. I ain't mad. We just have to go over these things every now and then just to realize and reassure ourselves that the alternatives that we talk about, the other lifestyles and endeavors that we talk about are the way that, for people like us anyway, people who agree with us, everybody's different. But for people who agree with us, this is a way to organize your life and preserve your own existence rather than just sitting on the couch with ulcers screaming at the TV, CNN about Trump and about Russia and Ukraine. Fuck all that. It's all goofy shit. But contrast is needed. You know, so this is why we talk about it. Contrast, that's why we're talking about Sandpocalypse today.
Man, let's get to this Sandpocalypse, yo. Fuck the Ukraine. Fuck every war that's going on right now. Let's talk about Sandpocalypse.
Angry white people like cheese. Somebody said something about angry whites.
Hoteps love flowers, like white people love cheese.
No, like angry whites.
Angry
love
white
cheese.
people.
Like
angry
particularly when they're angry and white, they love cheese even more.
I haven't found that to
for
be
some
a
reason.
connection, but it might.
It sounds accurate. I don't know.
It sounds accurate to this bleep. It sounds very accurate.
I don't know if it's true.
I'm trying to think back. Like, have I been upset every time I've eaten cheese? Maybe I have.
Right.
Every time you go in a fit is when you have a grilled cheese sandwich.
Yeah,
Yeah, chances are.
It's true. We calm
Drinking
down.
your wine.
That's